I had a client come into me just last month. She was frustrated that her husband did not seem to want to spend much time with her. He was pursuing their financial goals. He was trying to grow. Yeah, you've met guys like this, right? He's trying to grow and take care of his family, but the wife is not as happy at home. They want the same things, but they have no idea. They actually think they're in competition with each other. They think one of them has to win and the other one has to lose, and it sucks. First thing that people do when they come into me like this, I say, all right, we're going to build the 6 pillars of your marriage. 6 pillars of your marriage. It's a marriage agreement. We're going to sit down and do what you should have done while you were dating. Okay? We're going to build you the arrangement that your marriage is going to operate under for the rest of your life. People love to be treated like a human being. People love to be treated with respect. They love to be asked questions. They love to be invited in. They love to know what you're thinking. They love to talk with you. They love to be involved in a decision. They don't want to take over the decision usually. They just want to work with you and have a decision that feels okay to them too.
Adam, thanks for joining me.
Man, it is so much fun to be here. And everybody at home, we will respect your time because I know that time is on a premium. Let's make the best possible conversation in the shortest time.
Yes, always our goal. So we were talking as we started just to kind of preemptively discuss who you serve, and we're talking about relationships in general. And I think this is a really big part of the who quadrant in the high performance life. So when we talk about love, it's the who's that matter most. And what we often find, especially as high performers, is a lot of times there's very limited time and energy left for the people that we love the most by the time you dedicate every second of every day to everybody else. Talk to us and our audience a little bit about that subject, and anywhere you want to go with it is fine, but I feel like starting there might be a lot of fun.
I've got 2 places we can go with this, and both of them are going to get us in trouble, but it'll be fun. I'll give you the choice. Do you want to talk about how couples can make a wonderful, intimate marriage in about 30 minutes a day? Or do you want to talk about how high performers themselves have all the traits that drive high performance, but how it destroys the romantic relationships over time so that they're very unhappy?
Well,
Which one
maybe we'll
feels
have time
fun
to
to
get to
you?
both. We're going to start at intimacy because intimacy is going to build people up. And it's something we haven't really talked a lot about on our show. So we're going to go there direct with you right out of the gate. 30 minutes a day.
100%. 100%. So, just some background on this, right? I was a licensed marriage and family therapist for many, many years. I've also been married for 15 years now. I have 5 kids. I run a business. We grew it from zero, almost zero income up to about $1 million a year in about 2.5 years. We're now going past that. So, I understand the high performance lifestyle. I'm flying all over the place. I'll be flying in another 2-3 weeks to do another batch of filming for my own show and then other rounds of other shows. Again, with 5 kids, with an incredible wife who's a stay-at-home mom. So I understand those challenges of trying to build an emotionally intimate marriage in very little time. So here's what has worked not only for me, but also for my clients. In fact, I'll take that approach. I had a client come into me just last month. Just last month, she was frustrated that her husband did not seem to want to spend much time with her. He was pursuing their financial goals. He was trying to grow. Yeah, you've met guys like this, right? He's trying to grow and take care of his family, but the wife is not as happy at home. Have you seen this couple, man?
100 times.
Yeah. And what's the biggest problem with them, do you think? Like between the wife feeling unloved and him feeling like he's got to chase his dream. What do you think is the biggest friction point?
Well, it's the disconnect that they both want the same things, but they're coming at it from two different directions.
I love it. You nailed it. They want the same things, but they have no idea. They actually think they're in competition with each other. They think one of them has to win and the other one has to lose. And it sucks. It sucks. So two things that fix this. Anybody at home facing that issue right now? Okay. Scott, take notes. This will be
I am.
beautiful.
I'm got
Okay.
it. I got my notepad right
Um,
here.
First thing that people do when they come into me like this, I say, all right, we're going to build the 6 pillars of your marriage. 6 pillars of your marriage. It's a marriage agreement. We're going to sit down and do what you should have done while you were dating. Okay. We're going to build you the arrangement that your marriage is going to operate under for the rest of your life. So I take them aside and then I say, don't look at them. Look at me. Look at me. Speak to me. Okay. Tell me what three things are mandatory in your relationship for the rest of your life that would make it sustainable. Sustainable is the word that we need to continue focusing on here, because if you're living a high performance life, you must be able to sustain it. Otherwise, it will fall apart under you and you will check out at age 45 or 50. You're going to die, or your marriage will die, one or the other. So you must be able to sustain it. Minimum amount of energy input. What's the most sustainable thing? Three things. Okay. And they always start off and saying, well, I want him to stop. Nah, 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 nah. Stop is not a thing. Okay. Your husband cannot stop a thing. Your husband also can't not do a thing. Your husband can do a thing. He is doing things. You would rather he do other things. Let's replace. Okay. Let's replace. Okay. Well, what would I rather he be doing? Okay. I want more. What do they usually say? I want more emotional connection with my husband. That's amazing. And I agree with you. That is necessary. If you tell your husband, who has no idea what that means, that you want emotional connection and he's thinking about work and how financially he could take care of the family, he will throw up on you because the emotions will disgust him. So let's make that measurable. Emotional intimacy. What does that look like to you, right? Scott, what does emotional intimacy look like to you? Let me ask you that question.
Yeah. So to me, I think I'm a Gary Chapman five love languages guy. So I'm definitely a physical touch and words of affirmation. So I feel emotionally loved when I have intimacy in my marriage, and when I have the affirmation that all the that I'm doing for them,
Mm-hmm.
especially her, is
Mm-hmm.
being received and appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
And
Hold
that,
on. I want to
those are
dissect those
important.
two pieces. I want to dissect those two pieces because
Okay,
what you
let's
just
do
said
it.
is perfect. You feel good when there's intimacy in your marriage and when the things you're giving to her are being appreciated. We need to make that more measurable. We need to make that more measurable because that's not understandable. You say that to a woman, she's going to say, what do you mean? You want sex and thank yous? Like, well, what do I do? Right? Okay, let's make that
Yes,
measurable. You
yes, and
said
yes.
more intimacy. Yeah, I mean, yes. You said more intimacy in your relationship. What does more intimacy? Sex? Does that mean is that what you mean? Sex?
Yeah, I think that's one component. The older that it's the most important component.
Okay.
So it's the start, because
Okay.
I believe that that actually builds a closer relationship in a lot of other ways. If we're when we're intimate, and I kind of consider there's two things that I've broken this down, and I want you to take it your direction, but I want to just
Mhm.
divert for 1 second.
Yeah.
What I would say with intimacy is I've learned in marriage that I need one connection point every month,
Mhm.
meaning that it can't just be getting together for the purpose of getting together. It's got to be real,
Okay.
connected, present. Like,
Beautiful.
that's important to me. And I know
Okay.
that that's important to us. And I have to force that occasionally because that's something that I value very heavily. And
I'm
so
going to
this,
use
go ahead.
I'm going to use you as our model then. So you just listed all three things you need in a relationship. Intimacy, we're going to unpack that, make that even more measurable, right? Appreciation and one connection point per month. Let's make those measurable. Okay, let's make it so simple that a Martian from Mars, if they flew down, could read your instruction manual and be the perfect wife for you. Let's make it that simple, okay, so that everybody can understand. Sex. You talked about sex as one component. Sex. How many times a week are you looking for that would be optimal for you with a partner that you love? What are you thinking? 5 times a week, 20 times a week, 3 times a week?
Well, I whatever we have, I'm always going to ask for more. So if
Okay.
it's 3, I want 4. If it's 4, I want 5. If it's 5, I
Okay.
want 7. But I would say 3 times a week is very fair.
Cool. And that's sustainable. That's not
Yes.
too low to be non-sustainable. So at least 3 times a week. Sex at least 3 times a week. Now, are we talking quickies? Are we talking like warm, intimate moments? An hour, 5 hours, hanging from the swing? What are
That's
we
the
doing?
one connection a month. I think at the end of the day, there has to be a moment where there's a separation. My wife and I have something called ROM, weekends or weeks, that we've been doing for over a decade. And we teach people how to do these, but it's the rekindle our marriage. And at the end of the day, if you take our second born son was born, we had this major disconnection because I thought I was doing everything right by taking the older one. She wasn't getting what she needed. We decided to separate, not separate, just to get away from the kids for a weekend. We go to the Caribbean. We're on a boat on a ferry, and she hugs me and she goes, "This is our ROM weekend." And I said, "I don't know what that means, but it sounds great to me." And I said, "What does that mean?" She goes, "To rekindle our marriage weekend." And I'm a visionary, man. I took that to like 8 levels. So at the end of the day, I'm going to wine and dine her. I'm going to treat her like a queen. I'm going to do everything I can. And it was reciprocated. Everything I needed, everything we needed together, we gave each other. One-on-one conversation, my direct eye contact, the phone down, all the things we were learning about each other. And what I learned is our marriage really needed a couple of those a year. At the minimum, 6 months was the greatest. At the norm was a quarterly separation. And so going back to answer your question, in doing those ROMs, I learned that there is a deeper connection that we have when we separate. So
Mhm.
I have to have a separation once a month where there is nobody else there and it's just us and there's no distractions and that connection is good. The rest of it
Fantastic.
can be whatever. I mean, the rest of it is
Fantastic.
is serviceable.
Okay, so your three pillars so far. Sex, about 3 times a week minimum. You need at least one major reconnection point throughout the rest of the month, right? At least once a month and then 3 times a week. So there's two pillars for your marriage right there. Very measurable, very clear, and we've defined them. Okay. A woman could walk in and understand exactly what you're saying now. Okay. And number three was appreciation for things that you do for her. What does appreciation look like to you? How would you know that a woman was appreciating the things you had done for her? How would you know by looking at her or hearing her?
Well, again, I think it's interesting. We have to know ourselves and know how we feel loved. So, one of the things that I notice of a lot of friends and a lot of us in our lives, when we walk in the door after work, and we both work. So this is challenging. My wife's a school teacher, so she's been home for 2 to 3 hours by the time I walk in the door, sometimes longer. And life just keeps moving on so often. And so, one of the things that we've talked about in our lives that we appreciate is that I kind of like it to stop for a second, for an acknowledgement. Like it's respect, it's a hello, it's a kiss, it's something that just says, hey, I kind of missed you, even if I didn't. And it's good to see you.
Mhm.
And that is a really simple thing. One thing I've never struggled with. So a lot of men that you're going to work with are going to struggle with actually knowing what they want, what they need, and actually
Right.
showing it. I have
Right.
not had that problem. I'm probably the opposite, but I'm not saying I'm the opposite where I need a lot of extra attention, but I do need a
No,
lot of
I hear
extra
you. I
attention.
hear you.
But yeah, that's the point is that would be how I would define that.
That's wonderful. So you need to be greeted, greeted with
I
joy
like it.
when you enter. That's good. That's a good thing. You want to be greeted with joy, especially when you come home from work. That's fantastic. You need sex about 3 times a week, and you need a deep reconnection point with your partner about once a month. Those are your three pillars for a marriage. Those are that makes it sustainable. Okay. So I would sit a couple down and I would do exactly that process I just did. And then the other partner looks at them and says, that's all you want? That's measurable. That's easy. I can do that. Right. And you've been fighting for 15 years trying to figure out what the heck they want from you. And they just did that right there. So then the other one, I go through with the process with the other one. They give their three. It's funny how often they overlap. We usually only get like 3 or 4 pillars, usually instead of six, but up to 6 pillars where they all then we mesh them together. And I say, that's not your three and your three. That is your six as a couple. Now we are going to agree. Can we as a couple agree that we both desire sex 3 times a week and the conditions under which she would follow suit and say, yes, I can do that if this, right? Emotional intimacy, bases like that. Sex 1 to 3 times a week, one big reconnection per week. What wife is going to be like, nah, I don't really think I want to reconnect with you once a month on a couple's like date night, right? No, they're going to love that, right? And then being greeted at the door, she'll probably say, you know what? That's a fantastic idea. If I'm the one who comes home, could you greet me at the door as well? Could we both just be happy to see each other? And when we pass in the hallway, could we be happy to see each other there too? Right? That appreciation, that desire, that love, that warmth. That's what you're talking about. So we put those together and that becomes the operating agreement for the marriage. So then if you have disagreements, you move forward from there. That unifies you instantly onto this is the marriage we're trying to build. Now it's simply a very practical process of removing any and all obstacles, whether that's behaviors or environmental challenges or any other issues that are popping up. Let's remove or reduce the friction from any complicating variables that are deviating from this core marriage. And I simply teach the skills and modify the behaviors until then. Nobody's to blame. Nobody's the bad partner. It's just, let's get you fine tuned into an amazing, incredible marriage. So, Scott, if somebody walked in and did that for you before you guys did your rekindling and made it that simple, it sounds like you guys did a big piece of that process was to unify. What's the biggest difference between a non-unified marriage and a unified marriage, do you think? What have you seen?
So in I always just use my experiences because I think it's fair.
Mhm.
And it doesn't. I'm not an expert in anything. I'm just giving you my personal opinions. And so at the end of the day, the way I look at it is communication is usually the most important factor in any relationship, and it's something that gets really easy to throw away. We're super busy in our lives, and we are
Mhm.
both high performers. So
Mhm.
one of the things that is difficult when you're you wake up sometimes you realize I know I did. I married the perfect person for me. Okay? And part of the reason that I believe that we've been married 21 years, you know, we I needed someone that could handle my intensity, forgive quickly, be able to know that the way I am and my intensity is is just a normal part of that. But I also had to have someone that would calm me down and have a chill night occasionally and be like, hey, let's just watch a movie tonight, even if she falls asleep immediately upon putting it on. Like
Mhm.
these are the funny things that we've come together. I also have so many friends in a marriage that stopped fighting for the things they cared about, and it drives me crazy. And so I'll give you a great example. Mom has 2 kids. You have 5 kids, right? You said? So after each baby, the interest in intimacy is not significant, not immediately. Like crying baby, diapers to change, lots of other stuff, going back to work. I mean, they're superheroes with everything that they're doing. We know it, we see it, and we're like the third baby or the sixth baby. Like we're like, hey, what about me over here? Why are you not caring about me? And but at the end of the day, I feel like we fought for what we cared about. Both of us did. And a lot of my buddies, a lot of people I know stopped caring. So they would say, oh, if she's not going to show interest in me, I'm going to see how long it goes before she cares about me. I was the guy that would stand at the door and flash the light when she tried to go to bed and like, hey, you can't go to sleep. We got to stay awake. Come on. This is, and I was just a funny pest at times, but we go back to those moments and we were fighting for each other and what we needed. And when we were young and we weren't great at telling each other, we were acting in it. And we got older and we talk about it, we're being more honest and authentic. Those are really important parts in a relationship that have really worked well for us. And for some of our friends that have failed, I think it's a challenge.
What you just said in there, we're fighting for each other. That's the couple who thinks I want this marriage, but you want a bad marriage, right? And that what that does is you start trying to solve problems against each other in spite of each other. You start trying to build a good marriage in spite of your partner, and that creates a cortisol association in your brain with the brain. It says this person is too stressful. I cannot solve problems with them. Get them away from me. And even if you love them, your brain doesn't like them. That cortisol floods whenever you try to solve a problem with them. When you do this, when you unify those 6 pillars or whatever tactic you're going to use, when you do that, you start solving problems. Then you start saying, okay, what's the obstacle here? We both want this marriage, this together. We're a team now. We both want the same thing, like you said, right? How do we get there? And as you unlock pieces and start building that marriage, your brain actually starts releasing vasopressin. Vasopressin is the bonding hormone that releases when you solve problems together. High performers are huge on vasopressin, right? This is why we usually bond with anybody in our life, is because we have achieved a goal with them. And the brain says, they helped me build this. I'm going to stay around them for the rest of my life. And it initiates oxytocin bonding, which then drives that emotional intimacy. It makes you want to go greet your partner at the door. It makes you want to squeeze their butt as they walk by in the hallway, right? It's because you've achieved goals together. You eliminate the cortisol association, you boost the vasopressin association. Now emotional intimacy is very easy. Now it's easy for you to like each other. That's where we step into phase two with couples when they say, all right, how do we build a better marriage? Well, number one, you unify around it. You start solving the problems, vasopressin bonding. Number two, you institute oxytocin bonding. Now, it's maybe 30 minutes a night. Once you get in that right groove with each other, my wife and I, for example, end of the night, right? I work a number of hours taking care of my business and building that out. And I get to take lunches with my kids. It's fantastic, right? It's wonderful. She's an incredible stay-at-home mom. She's also homeschooling them. So end of the night, 9:30, we sit down and we're like, ugh, and we know, okay, we got about a half hour, maybe 45 minutes until the sleepies take us over, and we got to get up early at 5:30 to get the breakfast and stuff going again. So what do? Well, we sit down, we got a comfortable couch, we sit down on the couch, and we turn on an old movie that we are not going to watch. We turn on lately. It's been like 1990s, 1980s Batman movies,
Okay.
with Michael
Michael
Keaton.
Keaton.
Yeah, fantastic. You just put them on. They're campy. You laugh. Sometimes it's Die Hard. Great movie for this kind of stuff. I'm going to sell 1 million Die Hard DVDs for marriage couples now. But it's you put on a movie you're not going to watch. And what it does is it gives you something to aim towards, so you're not just staring at each other awkwardly like this, trying to have a conversation. Any good therapist will tell you, especially if you're working with kids, you have to have an activity that you're doing so that you can disengage that part of the brain, but then start speaking. And then we hold hands. Make sure prioritize physical contact. If your cortisol is low, physical contact initiates that oxytocin bonding, which initiates GABA, gamma-aminobutyric acid in the brain, which encourages melatonin. So you'll sleep better at night. It's also making you stronger against cortisol intrusions in the future. So GABA is an incredible thing that you mostly get through that cortisol, through the oxytocin release in your marriage. So holding hands, physical contact. My wife will lean against me and kind of snuggle. She's got a baby because we just had a baby 7 weeks ago. So she's got a baby on her, and then she's on me, and I'm like, all right, crushed against the side of the couch. But we're happy because you're in that happy sleep, the snuggle pile, right? And your body starts releasing oxytocin. Then we start talking about our day, and I say, babe, what was your what we do wins and challenges. What was your what was your win today, and what was a challenge that you faced? And she'll tell me, oh, the win was this and this. The kids did great. They're ahead in studies. They're like 2 years ahead in their math. They're brilliant kids. She's like, they did this. It was phenomenal. Challenge was, this child didn't sleep very good last night, so their behavior was off today. We were kind of going back and forth. Took a long time to get them back on track. I don't even know if I did by the end of the day. I feel like I flubbed something there. I don't know what I was doing, but I'll get back on track tomorrow. And I say, okay. I don't even solve her problem. I just say, okay, sounds like you got it. If you need any help, let me know. Sometimes she'll ask for advice, sometimes she won't, but just being heard and being connected, she loves that. She says, what was your win? What was your challenge? Oh, I was on this great podcast with Scott. We got to just talk and have a fantastic conversation. It was so cool. Challenge today, whatever the challenge will be today. I'm sure something will happen. It always does. And then we talk about it. And we just feel seen and heard. We relax and unwind. Um, there's structured ways for doing this, you guys, especially men who don't know how to share and bond, right? Even wait a minute now, Scott. Would you like me to share my four-point interaction for men who want to build emotional intimacy with their wife in 4 points?
Let's do it. 4
That
points.
just occurred to me, but that's something we could teach right now.
Let's do it.
Ooh, you're gonna like this one, Scott. Okay. So guys always come to me and they say, Adam, I want to have more sex with my wife. And I say, okay, well, to do that, you're probably gonna have to make her like you more. Then they say, well, all right, how do I do that? All right, well, we'll build emotional intimacy. What the heck does that mean? Okay, emotional intimacy is when you open up to her and you reveal yourself a bit to her emotionally. Well, that's going to be gross and that's going to be weird, and I don't want to cry. Well, you don't have to cry. Here's what you're going to do. Solution focused sharing, okay? The male brain, it observes problems and then acts upon them, back to front, back to front. The female brain observes a problem and then goes back and forth across the hemispheres and then spits out a solution. So it takes a little bit longer, but it analyzes your solutions is what it is. So you're going to go to your wife, you're going to click in with her like this. Your brains are going to click, and you're going to say, hey, babe, can I get 10 minutes of your time to run something by you? She's going to say, yes, you've never done this before. Yeah, okay. And you'll say, okay, here's a problem I'm having, right? So you share, number one, you share a problem you are facing. This is not complaining. You're going to say, I'm running something by you to get feedback. There's this guy at work. He's a jerk. He won't stop talking to me. He's always kind of problems. He's always kind of rude. I don't know, and he's just there. Okay, share the problem. A relational problem, they love it. So even better. Relational problem. Then you share how the problem is making you feel so that you're a relatable human being and she can see what your feelings are like and how you respond to things. This guy is annoying the heck out of me. I can't stand it. It's making it hard to work. I'm very frustrated. Okay. Step number 3. You share the solution that you as a man probably have already thought of, or that you've got a solution from another guy. I think I'm just going to hit him with a brick. That will solve this problem. He will stop talking and he will no longer be a jerk because he will be unconscious. It will be perfect. I have the perfect brick out front in the yard. I'm going to take it to work tomorrow with me. Isn't this a great idea? Okay. Most guys at this point will stop and say, well, if I already have a solution, why am I telling my wife? This is just complaining. That's an extra step. I will just go do the thing that I'm going to do. Right? Pause. The reason that you're connecting with her is actually to analyze that solution to see if there's other effects that you're not thinking about, or see if there's a better way to do what you're about to do, right? Other men can't usually do that. They'll tell you if the solution will work, but women will tell you what the effects of that solution will be. That's how their brains are designed to work. So she'll say, you say these magic words. Before I do that, do you have any insight to share with me? Can you see anything that I've missed? And she'll say, well, a brick would be very effective, but have you considered blah, 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 blah? If you do that, this will happen. Their brain will say, if this happens, this relationship will be interrupted. This will happen. This will happen. These are how all the interrupted relationships will all hit each other across the ecosystem. So instead of that, here's an alternate. What do you think of this? Women will usually ask you a question. What do you think of this? And they'll propose a different solution. You'll go, how did you think of all those things? Okay. Yeah, actually, that makes sense. I appreciate that feedback. I'll give that some thought and I'll think about doing that tomorrow instead. Thank you. I appreciate that. And then end of the conversation. It's that easy, right? You run the solution by her and it's going to be whatever it's going to be. And she'll share something. You thank her for it. Here's why this works. Number one, you are opening up emotionally to her. Women are designed to love this biochemically and socially. Their brains are designed to say, he's confiding in me. He's sharing with me. I now understand how his brain works. And so I feel more secure and safe. But this makes me valuable in his life. In fact, if a blonde haired bikini bimbo walks by who's 19 years old, he won't leave me for her because over the years, as he opens up to me and I learn to give him better and better advice, nobody can ever replace me. And he's investing in me. I am safe and secure. And this is why their emotional intimacy goes up. Then they like you. Then they trust you. Then their sex drive goes through the roof. Then you can't get a night off because they're chasing you down the hallway. So if you want that effect, those are the 4 points. Scott, what do you think of those? I bet you already do that with your wife, don't you?
I think sometimes. I think I still I'm still an entrepreneur and a hard worker and somebody that puts his head down and just likes to finish the job. And then when I'm asked about what what it was like or what I did or what I went through, I don't like to relive it. So it's challenging for me to do that. And so to bring in, and I'm also a solutions person. I handle a lot of things. So we recently had a great I think our kids are teenagers and we have one getting ready to go to college. We have one living away playing soccer in an academy. And so it's very we're at this almost like empty nest mode in our lives. And there's a reliance upon each other that changes. And so I'm noticing that I'm more willing and I'm trying harder to open up about the process versus just the solution and the ending. So, if she talks about retirement from teaching in the future, right, and when she's going to do that, right, the old me would say, "Give me the number. I'll call the person that handles it. Let me." Now, I she gathers the information. We talk about it. Like I have to make sure that together we're a part of it, even if it's what I've done my whole life in my career. It's important that we're learning and growing in this together. And so I'm humbly admitting I've been bad at it for many, many years. I'm also admitting that I'm trying to be better. So that's a long answer to a short question.
Most men are bad at this, right? We only have to get a little unbad at it. And the more that you can do this, the more oxytocin you give her, the more serotonin you give her, the more actually that your life improves. You don't have to be perfect at this. You just do it once in a while and she will love it. And then you will love it too. And then it becomes second nature because what you love becomes what you do. That's the pattern. You get rewarded for the things that you like. So you'll keep doing them. That's how your brains are built. So yeah, follow this method, man. Give this a try
Oh,
tonight. Later, Scott, sit her
it's
down.
not a
Say, babe,
bad thing.
can I get your input on something? Right? And she'll go, yes.
Yeah, well, it's I think what's interesting is generationally when you look at relationships, millennials tend to be really good at this. They grew up, and I don't know if your research shows the same, but from what I understand, in being in the financial services industry for 22 years, what I notice about generations is the World War II generation, the husband would come in, the wife would not pay attention at all, not one bit, would not listen to anything until he was sick or dead. Then they would say, "What do we do?" And you would lead them just like their husband, and they eventually become so savvy, so strong, so great at it, and they would have been a great partner for many, many years. They didn't know it. The baby boomers are a little different in that they kind of just fumble into problems and then solve them together. And because their parents were so disciplined and distinctive in every decision. And then you had Gen X, which I am the tail end of, but I am still Gen X, and we're a small portion of the population, probably very ill represented, and we're more of the old generation than we are the new generation. So we're still kind of, for men, I think we are a little Neanderthal, still more Neanderthal than the new generation. Then you get to millennials, and they rented for years before they bought, and they chose houses together. They had a dog before they had kids. Like, I would never have done that. And so these are different things that you see. And I think that I'd love to hear about what your opinion is and your research shows, but I tend to believe that that mentality, you're seeing more millennial relationships, I think, last longer, and the marriages are staying a little longer from what I could see. Now, I don't know if that's consistent and still happening, but I'm interested in your opinion.
It's good that you're seeing that many good people. It sounds like you're connecting with a great subpopulation of people who are thriving and who want to grow.
Probably
And that's
so.
not
Yeah.
surprising because those are the people that are going to come to you for that kind of stuff, which is
Right.
fantastic. The research is sadly often in the other direction, that millennials are the most likely to be lonely, that they are the most likely to not get married. They're the most likely not to have kids, but they're actually the most likely to want to have kids. So something like 90% of childless millennial women actually wanted to have children, and it just didn't work out, and they didn't know how to do it. So you get the best who are coming to you like ready to achieve, and you're helping them achieve that. But there are so many being left behind. And unfortunately, many of them are high performers, so they're thriving in every single area of their life, except for that. I have male coaching clients, especially, and female coaching clients who come to me, but male executives, especially female lawyers, tend to come to me, but male execs, they come in and they are killing it on the way up. They're killing it. They built a company, or they're killing it climbing the company. They are ethical. They are not slimy like 1980s guys. They're not doing coke in the office. They're not
Right.
even starting sleeping the way up. They are diligent, hard workers. They plug away. The company loves them. But the problem is they don't know how to build deep relationships on the
Yep.
way up. So their personal relationships are weak. So they get to the top. They get to that C-suite. They get they're the CEO. Many of them are CEOs of head companies. Some of them are running $100 million companies. Some of them like own $100 million company, and they're up here, and the skill set that has helped them climb now is working against them. And now they feel like their board doesn't like them. And now they don't know how to mentor the people beneath them because they don't have that parenting skill set, really. And they don't know how to maintain connections with the other executives. And they're always worried about how to communicate. So they'll bark, then they feel bad like they've done something wrong, and they're always walking carefully. And then there's no very, very little loyalty because they've fostered good feelings in the people beneath them, but they haven't fostered relationships. So they start to bleed talent, and that makes them panic. And this happens over years, sometimes a decade or more. And they come to me and say, "Why am I not succeeding anymore? What wall have I hit?" And it's that once you hit that peak, that leadership peak, you must switch into these more secure attachment behaviors to be able to maintain what you have built. Very, very different game. Have you seen that piece, Scott?
Yeah, I think it's a great point, and I love that you brought that up. I see so many transactional relationships in business, and Arthur Brooks, who wrote From Strength to Strength out of Harvard, calls them real friends versus deal friends. And in your life, you really want to have as many real friends as possible, not the people that are deal friends. And what happens, especially to men, is they go through their life and they leave a job, and they thought their best friends were all at that previous job until it's a competition or a competitive company or something different. And then one of the 10 of their best friends for the last decade are still their friend. And everybody else is kind of like, ah, he doesn't wear the same colors anymore. We're not going to call him. And men wake up and like, whoa, I didn't realize it was so shallow. And so I see that often, and I think that relationships, I have not had that problem, and I think it's something that I can attribute to growing up in an Italian Catholic family with five aunts and a young father and mother, and being around so many people. The depth of the relationship is so important to me. In our company, we actually do wins and challenges every Friday, and we do a Zoom every Monday where we have it's just a Monday morning huddle. What did you do over the weekend? And it's all designed for each of our employees and our staff to learn about each other with depth, so that you're rooting for the person to run the marathon. You're rooting for the person in their relationship when they're traveling and they're going on a trip somewhere, and you're excited to hear about when they come back. And I think in companies, as people climb the ladder, they ask the question and don't care about the results so often. And you could hear it in meetings. I mean, I've been a part of big companies, and they go right into business. Like I've ended meetings with like, it's the end of the meeting, and I'm like, thank you to everybody. You guys have done an amazing job. I want to commend you. I want to commend you. And that one person comes back on, and they're like, I have one more business question. You're like, dude, that's not the time. You ask that another time, because you're so driven on the deal that you're not focusing on the real. And it's very frustrating from a relationship standpoint. Depth is so powerful.
And that's there's a key piece right there. Is there's a lot of men out there who don't know how to authentically connect with other human beings. They're not even trying to wheel and deal. They're not manipulative. They're not unethical. They're
Right.
not hurting anybody. They're actually very sensitive to other people. They're very sensitive to the idea of hurting anybody. They are very careful to be nurturing toward other people in that regard, at least safe. They are very risk assessment focused. They're always tracking risks, and that actually makes them pretty tired. So they tend to stay out of deeper relationships because there's so many variables there. It's not a smart move. That'd be a lot of drama. So maintaining low risk in every area of their personal life allows them to take great risks in their professional life and chase dreams. They'll do things anybody else would be too afraid to do. So the idea of I'm afraid of relationships doesn't even track for them. But it's massive risk assessment that when you go up, you don't take the risks personally, relationally, to share with somebody. There's those meetings, and people are talking about their goals and their thoughts, and they're sitting there going, "Why the hell are people sharing these things? I don't understand."
Yeah.
And
They're
then,
getting
or there'll be the
uncomfortable.
leader who has read a book to say, you ask your people about their personal life, and you're like, "Oh, how you doing? I'm doing on this trip. Oh, great, tell me about it." And they can at least kind of like play the game, but then they don't reciprocate. They don't share anything about themselves, so they're entirely unrelatable. And their team goes, this guy never shares anything about himself. He never has anything going on. He doesn't really follow up as in the way that I would expect. And I don't feel a connection with him. He's not mean and he pays me well, but I don't have a connection with him. Well, this other company's offering me a little bit more money. Why not? Why not jump ship? The loyalty isn't there. They don't hate you. You just didn't build the relationships. A lot of these guys are bewildered at the end of the day and say, why does nobody be my friend? What is working for other people that isn't working for me? Why am I alone in my penthouse apartment with making, $50 million a year? Why am I doing this? But I'm drinking myself to sleep at night because I'm so lonely. I've never hurt anybody, but why am I so alone when everybody else seems so happy? That's the guys that we're aiming at right now, right? And unfortunately sometimes they get married and their wives, right? They're crying to sleep and they're crying themselves to sleep in the bed. High performers are some of the loneliest people on earth until they learn that skill set to actually bond with other people.
Yeah, it's so powerful. And I think we're seeing a lot more of this nowadays. And we're seeing more and more single parent houses, which which is very challenging, I would imagine, for confidence, especially for men. So trusting people in relationships without that partner, especially a dad around, is a challenge. I've seen that a lot. Um, and I also think that the depth of relationships is a fear of failure. So they're scared, and they're scared of failing at something. And the reality is, I say stuff all the time that occasionally I'm like, did I share too much? Maybe I did. And the older I get, the less and less I care about that, because it's the closer and closer to who I am. And the more I put that out there, the deeper the relationships become. The more people listening to us know that this is a real show, not some full of bullshit show where we're trying to act like something that we're not. This is about us learning about each other, sharing good ideas, and trying to help people find a better version of themselves, just like we are in the process of doing.
Right. Absolutely. You know, most of these most high performers don't even have a functioning framework for who to trust and why. And they don't understand how to let people into those degrees, right? If there's levels of trust that you have to understand and you have to bring people in. Then there's phrases that if you grow up in what we call a securely attached family, where your family practices good social skills, you care for each other's needs, you trust each other, you are consistent and reliable with each other, you show up honestly in the relationship, then you build that depth. If your parents train you in that, you talked about how the silent generation really didn't train people in that. Neither did the boomers, unfortunately. That's why we're in the mix that we're in. But when you have a family, like I'm raising my kids, right? Um, to build that intimacy, to build that and just talk and trust. When my son says, "Dad, I want this toy," I don't say, "I'm not going to buy you that toy," or "Go away from me," or just like, "Oh, right here, take a toy," right? No, I say, "Talk to me about why that toy means something to you. What are you thinking there?" Well, this and this and this. Okay. You know what? Why don't we find a pathway for you to be able to earn that toy? You don't have to earn my love, but if you want that, let's find a way for you to earn it. You're gonna have to learn how to earn your way in the world growing up, and that's cool. So let's talk about that. What are some things that you can do that would reach the value of that? And then I will purchase that for you. Well, Dad, I can do this and this and this. I'll do the dishes, every day for a week or something. Cool, buddy. That sounds like an awesome deal. I shake his hand. That sounds great. By all means, if you do that, I will buy you that toy. And then he reaches that marker and he does it. And I say, you know what? I'm going to buy you that toy and I'm going to do this extra thing for you. And I give a little bonus to him, right? And it's an actual care. But then I give him a hug and I say, buddy, I'm so proud of you for following through on this. That was incredible. You did great. You saw this through. Look at how you're growing. This is fantastic, right? And I'm training him that way. That's called secure attachment, by the way, when you're authentic like that. And I'm actually building that moment with him and that connection. I don't get everything right, and I don't have to, because when I get it wrong, I can go to him and say, buddy, hey, I got to be square with you. I was wrong with you the other day. I said something wrong. I'm sorry that I was grumpy in this regard. I'm sorry. Did that hurt your feelings? Okay, here's what was happening. It's not an excuse. Here's why I did it, so you understand. And then here's what I'm going to do to make it right. Right, going forward, we're going to take care of each other this way. Secure attachment. When you have that, you have a framework for how to open up with other people. You could do like we did earlier, like I shared with you, like securely attached guys out there. They don't need me to train them and say, hey, go to your wife, share a problem, and then share how the problem feels, and then share a solution and ask for her feedback. He's going to go. He's going to tell his wife, hey, babe, can I run something by you? It's kind of bothering me. Yeah, sure. And he'll share and he'll say this, and then she'll say, oh, have you thought about this? He'll go, that's great. Thank you. And then they just roll forward. It's like that because he's been doing that with his dad. He's been doing that with his mom. You're doing that with his sister his whole life. So he gets there and he just shares it with her. This is secure attachment. And there's about 50% of adults with not that here in America. So about half of the people listening to the show don't have that, to be honest with you. It's pretty sad.
We were, I was at a conference probably a year ago, and I'm riding in a car on the way to the airport. Excuse me. On the way to the airport, and I'm with an older guy who's potentially going to sell his business, and he's asking me a ton of questions because we buy businesses, and that's something that we've done. And so he's asking me a ton of questions, and I turned to him and I asked him, I said, have you ever asked your family what they want to do? Like, you're saying you don't want to retire. You're saying that you don't see yourself stepping away. You don't, what does your wife want to do? And he goes, I've never asked her that question. And I said, that would be a really good start to identify what it is that she wants to. Well, she's got her own thing and she's doing. And I said, all that's good. What about your kids? Are there things that your kids would like to do with you in the next? And money's not an issue. You guys have made a lot of money. You have more than you need. Like, what are some of the? I just asked like this. I mean, if I could tell you, these were the 2 or 3 simplest questions one could ask, and the the level of perplexity and then awareness to go, huh, I've never asked those questions. And that was about a year ago. I heard that individual is now shopping the business and thinking about something different. And it's interesting. I wonder if they had that level of depth in the conversation with their family. I doubt it, but it's definitely a challenge. And I love what you talked about with the kids. I think I have two sons, and I think one of the challenges with boys are you have how old is your oldest?
7.
7. So with 14 and 17, they'll be 15 and 18 in a month. I am I'm at the point where they're separating to create that transition to the next chapter. You know, there has to be this I'm going to be a guy, and so therefore dad's I can come to dad when I really need him, which I'm seeing, but I'm also getting the shut down on dad's opinions are funny, or you always go too deep, dad, or we don't need to do everything you do, or whatever it is. Like, it's the teenager thing, right? And but I think understanding, just like you talked about with our wives, understanding how they feel loved, what they need in the relationship, it always starts with giving. And so one of the things I've tried to do in my life is focus heavily on what that individual child needs, because they're completely different from each other. And one will ask me for something every day. One will never ask me for anything. But if the one that never asks for anything, if I don't challenge him, even when he does, he doesn't feel like he earned it. Like, I have
Mm.
to actually have a little banter. He's a results oriented individual. We have like we have a little thing that we do, and I'm like, and I end up folding, but I let him feel like we had a little tussle. And
Mhm.
whereas the other child is more of, hey, can I do this? Can I have that? Would you do that? Would you do this? And then he gets several things more than the oldest. And the oldest is always looking at me going, how come it's so easy for him? And I'm like, dude, he asks. He just asks. Like, you don't ask. And
Mhm.
so understanding them is part of that relationship building. And I hope that that's something like you're doing with your children, that they take into their relationships and gather that depth and gather that trust, because it's so imperative to build the strength and depth versus the width of just knowing a lot of people.
And that all of that is what high performers usually have never experienced. It's one thing that drives them onto the dopamine and cortisol pathways. I will be stressed out and my cortisol will drive me. There's no one coming to help me. I will do everything myself. I will be a one-man business and it will be fantastic. And I will work 18 hours a day for 15 years and I will build a trillion-dollar business and I will have no friends and I will be miserable and drink a lot of alcohol and I'll have a wife who doesn't speak to me, and that'll be my life. That's just what it is. And until they learn that this is even possible, like you open that person's eyes. You said, "Well, what does your wife want?" He went, his brain clicked, the grinding of like a car that's not shifting into gear, and he was like, his brain probably said, "People don't ask each other that question." That's probably what his brain said, like, does not compute. Why would I ask my wife what she wants? And not in a bad way, just legitimately, why would I ask her what she wants? Well, because she's your wife and because she has a huge say in this and because it impacts her life deeply. And I can just ask her? Is she gonna like be mean to me for asking her? No, she's probably going to be happy that you asked her. And then you're going to have a conversation about what you can both build together. Well, what if she's unreasonable? Well, then you would tell her, "Hey, I don't feel that this is reasonable. Can we find something that's a little more reasonable?" People will do that. Well, people that love you will do that. Yes. That is exactly the process. It's like mind blowing because they've never experienced it. You take them all the way back to that childhood moment of people saying, "No, get out of here. You don't get a toy. I'm not buying you that crap. You don't deserve that." Or, "No, get out of my face. You don't need that anymore. No, come on, leave me alone." They go back to that and they say, "Well, that's what my wife's going to say. Hey, babe, what do you think about me retiring?" "No, get out of here. I don't want to listen to that." "Yes, you should retire. You should sit at home and you should be my husband and you should just pay attention to me and watch movies with me." Right? "You know what? I don't even think this is a good, you're going to retire. Well, why don't we just get a divorce? Because I don't want to spend more time around you." Right? They run through all the risks in their head of what she could say, and it paralyzes them to even think about asking her. So then here comes Scott. Hey, buddy. Hey, buddy, your wife loves you. Why don't you ask her what she thinks about running a business? Why don't you ask her what she thinks about the money? It sounds like the most dangerous thing in the world. I would rather close a bear trap on my own head than do that. But then you know what? You know what's magical? And you've seen this, Scott. When they actually go and ask, people respond so well. People love to be treated like a human being. People love to be treated with respect. They love to be asked questions. They love to be invited in. They love to know what you're thinking. They love to talk with you. They love to be involved in a decision. They don't want to take over the decision usually. Maybe your parents did, but not this person who cares about you. They just want to work with you and have a decision that feels okay to them too. And then you work together to build it. And the high performing guys I work with, man, the execs, they're like, I had no idea I could just talk to my kids. Right? I haven't spoken to my son in 2 years. Does he hate you? No, we just don't speak. Well, okay, could you call him and say, hey, son, this will sound a little weird, but I have found that I really would like to have a relationship with you, and I haven't had much of one with you. I don't know how to build this yet, but I'm here to ask two questions. Number one, are you open to a deeper relationship, whatever that may look like? And number two, what would that look like? What does that even look like to you? What tell me what an ideal relationship for us might look like. Do you have any ideas on that? If so, we can figure out how to get there. Right? And usually kids are like, Dad, are you drunk? But then like they open up a little bit and they're like, you know what? This could be cool. Like daughters, especially, they're like, yes. And they unroll their list of things that they want in the relationship with you. And dads are blown away by by the guidance that these kids will start issuing them and taking charge in that relationship. So it's amazing when you invite the right people in, how your life just gets so much better. So much better.
Yeah, I think a lot of providers, what we would call good dads of the past, people that just put their head down, worked for their family, did whatever they needed, never let their family down,
Yep.
paid the bills, helped them go to college, do whatever. They're the workhorse climbing the mountain with all the packs. They're the dads now that let their kids bring all the stuff down to the beach and then they carry it all back, which I'm not a fan of. I made my boys carry everything they brought to the beach because I will not be their camel, but I will do it when they need me, but I am not doing it at the beach. But I think what happens a lot of times is you play a role in a relationship, and sometimes you play that role so well that you have to realize that it's like an actor who has to come out of that role. Like you cannot be that character throughout your entire life or you will be empty and deserted. And what happens is they only see you as that, and you've only shown them that. And it might have been the most important thing for them. I had a conversation. It was a great conversation. We do a Valentine's Day event for our practice, and 150, 200 women all come out on Valentine's Day, have a beautiful lunch. Excuse me. We have it's a super fun day. We do it all over in different markets, in different offices. But I was at the one locally here in Chesapeake, Virginia, and I got into two conversations back to back where the wives were like, you know, all my husband wants to do is talk about the cost of he wants to buy a new car, but he can't just buy a new car. We have $2 million in an account with your company, and this guy will not buy the car that he wants. And all I said was, you know, I understand, and it's painful. They're so analytical that they're hand wringing, and it just makes her so frustrated, right? And I said that probably makes you very frustrated. She goes, yeah, it does. And I said, he's been the provider for the family, and he's had to go to war in his brain to make sure everything worked his entire life. And now you want him to come off $60,000 like it's nothing. He still sees $60,000 like it was 30 years ago. And in your brain, he sees that as showing, just so you know, he sees that as showing you love. He's not doing a good job of it. You see it as the opposite. And she was like, oh my gosh. Both of the ladies were like just simply mind blown. Again, you probably see this every day in your practice. And then 10 minutes later, I'm having a conversation with another one. She's like, we're picking out all the things in the new house. We're downsizing. And we got in an argument about the furnishings, like the granite countertop or this. And it was like $10,000, Scott. And I said the exact same thing I just said. I was like, well, it worked before. Let's try it again. And I said it again. And she said, he came to me the next morning and he apologized and he said, whatever I want, I can have, that it's just really hard for him to come off of this. And that's the difference. So the difference between the two men are, one allowed that vulnerability. He wasn't weak. He wasn't soft. He was just honest. And that authenticity allows them to understand each other and to move forward. And it's such a powerful thing.
This is the key piece right here. Men are meant to go to war, and we're meant to put on our armor, and we're meant to go to war. And some men never ever ever learn to take their armor off. That's what we would call that avoidant attachment style, where you've attached you only know how to relate to other people with your armor on. So you imagine a guy going out fighting his wars, then he comes home, he trumps in the house with his muddy boots, and then he wears his armor at the dinner table, and then he lays down in his bed at night, he wears his armor. He's trying to make love to his wife while wearing his armor. He's bathing and showering in his armor still. And then he gets up and he goes to work the next day in his armor. And that's why nobody can relate to him, because he looks like a crazy person, and no one can snuggle him, and he looks very uncomfortable because he is very uncomfortable. But he's waiting for the enemy to kick in his door and stab him with a spear while he's sleeping. So he's just in his armor. He doesn't trust anybody, but that's how he takes care of his family. That's how he cares for everybody around him, is to never ever ever take his armor off. What I teach men is, when you are ready to take your armor off, you understand that the door is locked. You understand the people in the room with you are safe and do not have a knife. They're not going to stab you. And you can take your armor off selectively with your family and with your friends. And then when it's time to put the armor back on, you put it back on, you go back out, you do your war. But you learn to take the armor off. That's the work. That's the attachment work here that we've got to do to train these men to be able to take their armor back off, and the women as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you're doing it. I'm glad that you're out there, putting that information out there. Can you talk to our listeners as we wrap up? Can you give the listeners a little bit about your information about your attachment boot camp? What's involved? What does it look like? And how can people take advantage of this type of um, opportunity to better their relationships?
Absolutely. So I worked for years as a licensed marriage and family therapist, and then I retired from that so I could coach on the bigger stage and really teach everybody in the world about this. And I compiled my 15 years of training and experience on how to take the armor off, but also how to build self-confidence, self-respect. I hate the word self-love. That doesn't usually resonate with anybody who actually does anything, but I mean, some people love it, and I get that, but it, self-love doesn't mean anything to me. Self-respect, oh, self-respect is what we look at really when we track that. But the ability to be who you actually are, and to build love and loyalty with those around you because of who you are, and to filter for who you can truly trust, and then build that into a family, build that into friendship and romance. It is impossible to measure the difference in the quality of life when you build that. So I put all of that into the Attachment Bootcamp video course to show people in 10 clear steps how to go from high performing but unfulfilled into finding true fulfillment with their family and friends. The nice thing about this course, especially if you're an individual, you get a tremendous amount of value out of it, and it'll walk you through the program. But what's really magical is when a couple takes this course together and they pause after each video and they say, what was something that you learned from that video that really hit home, and what is something you want to implement in our marriage? The conversations are incredible. It bonds you for a lifetime, and you understand each other. It's all those conversations you should have about, hey, have you asked your wife about this? It's all of those pieces back to back. So the Attachment Bootcamp course is on my website, adamlanesmith.com. I think, Scott, you're going to drop it down in the show notes so
I
people
am.
can pick it up very, very easily. And pick it up, watch it. You can. It's 7 hours. It's very condensed. I am very practical and very tight on what I do, and you can watch it on double speed, so you can learn all of this in 3.5 hours and build a completely different life for yourself. So very
Well,
quick.
I'm excited to learn about it. I'm excited to share it with our audience. I'm also excited because I know when we pre-rom, I said the rekindle our marriage. Before we started that process, it started with listening to Gary Chapman's book, The Five Love Languages, on a CD in the car on a way to a wedding, while one of our sons wailed in the background because he didn't like riding in the car as a baby. And we listened, and it was the first time we were listening to learn about each other, being newly married, being young. it's often about ourselves. And we had to learn that it had nothing to do with us. It had everything to do with learning about the other person and then how those things fit into our world. And then that made everything so much better. And so by doing this together, by taking the boot camp together, by learning about this together, I'm pretty sure that it's an impactful thing for your relationship. And it's an investment. And when you're investing in each other, it's usually a pretty good result.
Absolutely. That's what exactly. I'm so glad you get that. Learn about each other while you watch the course and while you learn about yourself as well.
Well, everybody should take a look at the course. Adam Lane Smith, the attachment specialist. Follow him on social media. Follow his story. Follow his conversations. He's been on some amazing shows, and so if you can listen to way better podcasts than I'm putting out there, he's been killing. No, he's definitely out there on a lot of good stuff, and I'm really proud to have you on the show, and I'm grateful for your time.
Thank you so much for letting me be here.
I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you liked it, there's more where this one came from. Click here and enjoy some more.